In this video, we are going to review how to add and subtract decimals. For our vocabulary, we're going to remind ourselves what the place values are. So the 8 is in the hundreds place. Notice how that is spelled. Hundreds with an S, not hundredths with a THS, which is what you get when you have the decimal. And then the 7 is in the tens place, just with an S, as opposed to the tenths place with a THS. And the 3 would be in the ones place. Then the 1 that's going to be in the tenths place. So that's where that THS comes in, indicating that it's the decimal part. And then the 4 is in the hundredths place, and the 5 is in the thousandths place, which would mean the 9 is in the 10,000ths place. I also want you to kind of notice which ones match up, right? So the 1 stands alone. There's no oneths place, right? It's just the ones place. But the tens match with the tenths, but they're not the same distance away from the decimal point. So that can get confusing sometimes because the tens are just the next one next to the decimal. The tenths are, but the tens are one away on the other side. Maybe that's more confusing, but I'm just kind of trying to make sure you notice that they're not like balancing around the decimal place, they're balancing around the ones place. And sometimes people can get that mixed up. All right, so let's start by adding 31 and 57 hundredths to 9 and 8 tenths. First thing we're going to do is we're going to write down the problem and we're going to line the numbers up on top of each other, and we're going to make sure that the decimal place lands in the same spot. So I know my decimal needs to be in the same spot as up above, so that means it'll be 9.8 like that. Now when we go to add, this presents us with a bit of a problem because there is this empty space over here. I don't know what to add my 7 to. Well, we know that 9.8 is equivalent to 9.80 because 8 tenths is equivalent to 81 hundredths, right? That 0 doesn't change anything. So I'm going to put in a 0 here before I add. So once I have that, I do my 7 plus 0, which gives me 7. I'm just going to add my columns. 5 plus 8, which gives me 13. But, oh wait, I don't write both the 1 and the 3 down there. Instead, that 1 goes up top. That's called carrying. Hopefully you remember that from elementary school. And so now on the next time, I have 3 numbers to add. I have 9, 1, and another 1 that was left over from the 13. So that would give me 11. But once again, I don't write that first digit. Instead, I carry it. So now I have 4137, and that decimal place stays in the same spot. So my answer is 41 and 37 hundredths. Okay, so now I've written another one up here. We have 644 and 8 tenths and 29 and 192 thousandths. I want you to pause. I want you to line them up, being careful about that decimal, and I want you to add. When you're done, unpause and check and see if you got it right. Remember, this is your chance to try it out on your own. Even if you're confused, just try it. If you get it wrong, that's okay. It'll mean that you'll understand it better when you do watch it. So hopefully you started by lining up your place values, making sure the tens are in the same spot, the ones are in the same spot, the tenths are in the same spot. And the easiest way to do that is to make sure that decimal is in the same spot. Put in your placeholder zeros and add. Once we get to the 4 and the 9, that gives us 13. So we carry the 1. 1 plus 4 plus 2 is 7. Nothing to carry, so we just have 6. And then we make sure we put our decimal in the same spot it was in the original problems. Hopefully you got 673 with 992 thousandths. Very close to 674. All right, next we are going to subtract. So we're going to set this up the same way by lining up the decimals. Let's do that now. All right, so once again, I'm going to fill in any open decimal spaces with zeros, and then I'm going to subtract. So first I have 5 minus 0 gives me 5. 5 minus 3, once again I'm just going one column at a time. 5 minus 3 gives me 2. 5 minus 2 gives me 3. Easy so far. But now 5 minus 7. This does not work. We don't want to deal with negative numbers. That would be crazy. That would be really strange, especially because we know that 55 minus 7 should definitely be possible. So the way hopefully you were taught in elementary school to deal with this is to borrow. So since this 5 right here is too small, we are going to borrow from this one. We're going to borrow 1 whole. So that's going to make it, which is like a 10 sort of. So that's going to make this one 15. And it'll leave me with 4. So now I can do 15 minus 7, which gives me 8. And all I have left is 4 up here. And that should make sense because 55 minus 7 would give me 48. Then I put my decimal place in the right spot and I'm done. Now you try. All right, so you're going to try and do 80 minus 16.9. And I want you to make sure to do it by lining it up and borrowing. This one can be a little bit tricky. Give it a try now. Pause. Did you start off by adding in a decimal and a 0 to that 80 so you have something to subtract from? If not, do that now, repause, and try again. Okay, so now we're trying to subtract 9 from 0, but there's nothing to subtract from. 0 minus 9, we can't do that. I want to borrow from the 0, but there's nothing to subtract from there either. So I've got to go all the way back to the 8 and borrow from it. That'll give me 7 there. That'll make this a 10. So now I have something I can borrow from for my decimal 0. So I'm going to borrow from that, which will make it a 9. So I'm going to get rid of that 1 and make it a 9. And now I have a 10 here. So I can do 10 minus 9, which gives me 1. I only have 9 left in the next spot. 9 minus 6 gives me 3. And then only 7 left in the tens place. 7 minus 1 gives me 6. So I end up, and the decimal goes in the same spot. So I end up with 63.1. All right, so now we have our practice problem. You're going to subtract 246 7/10 by 128 75 hundredths. We'll check this in class tomorrow.